what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the motions here. The reason we have Alex here and you guys are on your bike is so we can replicate it on the stand, so we can build muscle memory around these positions better. If we can't do it on the stand, good luck doing it on the track, right? So right now, try to use this time to really drill it into your head, find certain pressure points on your body to make sure you know you're in the right spots. I'll give you some good cues and good reminders, so when you guys are actually riding, it will also help you remember certain things as well. Does that sound good? During this session, please ask questions, because no question is a dumb question. If you're thinking it, I'm pretty sure someone else is thinking it, especially in this group where we're all kind of in a similar range of riding at the moment. So no one's above anybody here. I want you guys to be comfortable with getting clarification on the details. What we're going to first start out talking about is our attack position. The attack position is just the position you're going to be standing up in, right? When we're standing up on the dirt bike, we need to make sure we can control the bike to the best of our ability. When we think about standing up, it's like this, right? Just standing up. But if we replicate that to the bike, it doesn't work quite right. We need to make a slight adjustments to certain body parts so you can distribute the weight from the front to the rear of the motorcycle evenly, and you can stay in the center of the bike most of the time. Everybody here knows Jet Lawrence, right?
Never heard of him.
Yeah, me either. But Jet Lawrence, he is so good because he's able to understand the forces acting on his body. What that means is anytime a force acts on his body, he's able to compensate and match that energy so he stays centered on the bike. What a lot of us will end up doing is we get energy from the bike or from outside forces pulling on us when we accelerate or hit a bump or a jump, and we let our body get manipulated too much, and now we're to the front, to the rear, and we're not controlling that weight. That creates a lot of instability and discomfort and could potentially cause some crashes. Okay? So to start off with this checklist, I call it, we're going to work from the feet all the way to our head so we can go step by step. Feet's going to be the first step. Okay? We want to make sure we're on the right part of our feet, because everything else on top of the feet will then follow nicely. You saw how Alex kind of slapped his feet up to the frame. That's going to be step one. We want to make sure our toes are nice and tight against the frame, so we have zero gap between that toe box and the frame, and that's going to help seal up the legs. Okay? If we have any gap between here and the frame, you're going to automatically create gap between the knees and the seat. Okay? So nice and tight with the feet, and then we want to slide back to the balls of our feet. The balls of your feet are right behind your toes to the little guys if you don't know exactly where that's at. You don't want to be too far back. You don't want to be on the tippy toes because that could run the risk of slipping off the back side of the peg, right? The balls of your feet, very, very important. Balls of the feet will then allow the heels to slightly drop below the foot pegs. This little drop is what we call ankle flexion, and this will help absorb certain imperfections around the track. What we are doing is allowing this natural suspension to take place. Right here, he has a slight ankle drop, but if you want to bounce up and down real quick, that little bit of bounce he has going on right here is going to naturally occur. It's not a forced movement. What we don't want to do is push our heels all the way to the ground, because now you're going to kind of defeat that purpose of that natural ankle flexion. So slightly sink those heels, let it be a comfortable spot for you. So when you hit braking bumps, chatter bumps, etc., it's going to help absorb you properly. Along with that ankle flexion, we do want to have some tension in it. Okay? When we hit a big obstacle or a big jump and you know there's going to be a harsh impact coming, make sure you have tension within that ankle so we don't slack it all the way to the ground and potentially cause injury as well. So that's part of the feet. Next thing is, that will help with your knees as well, is angle the toes in towards the frame a little bit. Big mistake I see is toes angled out. And this is just a subconscious thing that a lot of us don't realize we're doing. Our toes just end up pointing away from the bike. And then what do you think points away from the bike as well?
The knees.
The knees. The knees follow the direction your toes are pointing. So if we want our knees to squeeze tight automatically without having to think about it, it starts with the toes. Point them in like you're going to pinch the frame with your toes, and it's going to make those knees squeeze the bike automatically. Okay? Because realistically, when you're riding, you're not going to sit there and think about squeezing with your knees 100% of the time. That's just not possible. So that's going to help big time. Is there any questions about the feet so far? Pretty straightforward, right? Everything I talk about here is going to sound pretty obvious, which it kind of is, but the hardest part is implementing it every time you get on the bike. Step one, feet. Step two is going to be our knee position now. I already kind of briefly mentioned knees a little bit, but the bigger factor to our knee position is where it's distributing that weight. So for example, if Alex drives his knees forward, this is what we call in front of the foot pegs. When your knees are in front of the foot pegs, it's driving too much weight to the front of the motorcycle now, and it's creating a teeter-totter. Okay? Now when he accelerates, his weight's gonna get launched back. He's gonna have no control. When he decelerates, it's gonna get launched forward again, and it's gonna be very unstable. Not only that, with all that pressure on the front tire, the front end's overreactive. So in slippery conditions like this, I'm sure a lot of us were getting a little front end tuck whenever we stood. So what that made you do is get uncomfortable, and it made you want to sit right away. So we're not going to find comfort standing with our knees too far forward. We need to let the knees slide back along with the ankle flexion and let them come on top of the foot pegs. Okay? You should be able to look down. You should be able to see the whole top of your boot from up here all the way down to your toes. So everybody wants to try that out real quick. You can see the whole top of your boot. You're in a good spot. If you look down, you just see your kneecaps or your tippy toes. We got some issues. Okay? Very easy adjustment there, but that's a very important step. Second thing with the knees, guys, is we do want to have a slight bend in them. I would say no more than this kind of bend going on right here, because this slight bend is going to allow some lower body mobility. If we start bending past this point, where do the knees start going again?
Forward.
They start going forward. They're in the wrong spot again. That's where I'll see people want to get closer to the bike, lower their center of gravity, and this is the spot they pivot at. They start pivoting at their knees, their butt drops to the seat, but now their weight distribution's off again. Okay? So stay tall in these, and then we're going to want to hinge at the hips here, and I'll get to that in 1 second. There's one other piece to the knees that we'll get to also in a little bit, but that's the straight knee position, and that's going to be a variation to our attack position, but let's put that on hold for now. Is there any questions about the knees at the moment? Is that also pretty straightforward? So 2 things to think about. Knees above the foot pegs, slight bend in your knee. It's as simple as that. And as far as squeezing with the knees, we shouldn't have to think about that because we got the feet right, correct? If our feet are incorrect, then we have to start thinking about squeezing with the knees a little bit more. So if the feet are good, we're good. Step 1 and 2 done. Step 3 is going to be our hip position. Okay? So everybody here try to really lock in, because the hip position, very, very important to help corner with the bike in the standing position. I would argue this is the second most important step, because a lot of us struggle to get this right because it feels awkward, and it kind of is awkward at the beginning stages. We need to find some disconnection from the upper body and lower body. Okay? If we don't find that disconnection, what then happens is your upper body is forced to follow the lean angle when you are cornering. That creates a lot of discomfort, and it feels like your balance is off. Okay? Not only that, when you're feeling like you're going to fall over, we resort to just turning our handlebars instead. And if anybody's hit ruts here before, turning your handlebars in a rut is not good, right? What happens then? Start riding out of the rut, tucking the front, all the negative things, right? So instead, if we want to keep the bars as straight as possible, and we want to disconnect that lower body with a flat back or an arch in your back. Okay? This is the awkward part now. This awkwardness is going to allow this freedom of movement to happen. If we are the opposite, where our butt is tucked underneath us and our back is rolled, now we're locked in and we're following that lean angle. Okay? So instead, pop that butt out, make it feel awkward, get that flat back to happen, and then find that disconnection of that lower body. And this is where that slight bend in your knee is important, because that slight bend will help you manipulate that bike underneath you a little bit. Okay? Very, very huge step. If we're struggling with getting that flat back or the arch in your back to happen, think about pointing your chest up and out to the sky rather than pointing at the gas tank. Point your chest at the gas tank, makes it easier to kind of roll your back. Chest up and out, kind of flattens out that back, creates that arch aggressive. Cool? Any questions with that piece of it? Like I said, I want you guys to really try to cue that in, and we're going to use the corner track here at the beginning of the day, which will give you guys a good opportunity to really lock this into your brain. Cool? Any questions about that? Sweet. So we're all looking pretty darn good right now. I would say some of the smaller bikes, I know you guys' bikes are at an angle, but try to sink those heels a little bit more. 63, same as 127. Sinking those heels will help make it easier to keep the knees where they belong. Your heels start to come up, the knees will start to come forward automatically. Okay? All right, guys. Now we're going to tie it all together with step 4, and that is our upper body position. If our upper body position is incorrect, it ruins it all. For example, just let me push you back. If we end up here, well, we can all see what just happened to the bike, right? But But if we end up here, what's holding on to the bike the most right now?
The arms.
His arms, doing all the work. So everything you just did with the lower body is pointless. We got to make sure we are using our upper body to help balance out this attack position. And to do that, we want to drive our chin above the crossbar pad so it alleviates that pressure off of your arms. If you're at this position, you still feel like there's pressure on your hands, sink the heels a little bit more. Okay? Center that weight to the rear of your body. Now, if right, 060, stand up, 63, stand up. Let's see your guys' attack position real quick. At this point, I want you guys to let go of the handlebars. See what happens. If you let go of the handlebars and you stay nice and neutral, perfect, you're doing it right. But if you feel like you're falling forward or backwards, that indicates we are doing one step of the process incorrectly. And most of the time that's down to the knees or down to the ankle flexion, okay? Push that weight back into the heels a little bit. Try to balance out that body weight. You should have a lot of weight in your hip region and your heels. That'll help keep the weight nice and centered on the bike. Upper body shouldn't really have any pressure on it at all. That's why you're hinging at the hips and keeping that head in front of the hips, okay? Very, very huge. We're looking great.
You guys look great over here.
What was that?
They all look great over here.
Yeah, look really good. Any questions about that? This is something we can all practice at home on our stands. You guys can relax if you want. We can practice it at home on the stands, build that muscle memory without even riding. I know that sounds absolutely silly and kind of lame, but trust me, it's going to help your process. So when you get on the bike next time, you don't have to think about it. There's too much to think about riding a dirt bike. There truly is. So if you're trying to do all of that at once, it's not possible.
Muscle memory.
It will not stick. So today I want you guys to have some of these tools to help you guys out. And the reason we use it as a checklist is so we can work on one piece at a time. I can't stress that enough. Some of us might struggle with every single piece, and that's okay. Start at the feet, work your way up the ladder. If you struggle with maybe just the hips, we'll focus on that today. Let's really dial that in. Struggle with just your upper body position, focus on that. Cool? All right, guys, that's the attack position in a nutshell. That variation I was talking about, I want to stand up real quick. We got a slight variation to that. And remember how I said how Jet Lawrence is really good at staying centered over the bike, keeping his body weight driving into those forces? That's what we can start to do in this attack position, is build some understanding around that. We'll practice that here in a second, but we need to go to our acceleration position is what we call it. This acceleration position helps drive your head into those forces that are trying to yank you up the back of the bike when you accelerate, okay? The way to do that is to keep emphasis on the heel drop, but what we're gonna do is go straight kneed. Instead of having that slight bend, we're gonna go straight kneed. When we do that, our hips are gonna start driving towards the bar pad. The reason we want to keep emphasis in the heel drop is because we don't want all of our weight shifting to the front. We want to keep that weight down in the rear, but we're just driving our head and our hips forward to compensate for that energy. Okay? When you go to slow down, now you're just going to come back to your neutral attack position and think about pushing your butt into those forces trying to yank you forward now. Okay? So it's just two different movements. Acceleration, deceleration. I'm going to go back and forth, back and forth. You'll really be able to understand that energy gain from the back. I know it's kind of hard to understand right now when you're on a stand because it does feel weird when you don't have those forces yanking on you. So we'll get to that in a second. We'll actually practice it on flat ground and get that understanding built in. But that is the acceleration position. Any questions with that? Okay. Last but not least, we got to talk about one other thing, and that is how we're going to sit on the motorcycle. Because there is a time and place to sit when we're riding a dirt bike. But we got to make sure we're doing it correctly so the bike can still handle appropriately. First step, number 60, let's pay attention to this. First step, it's gonna be one hand width from the top of the seat. So you wanna put your hand sideways, put it right at the top of the seat, and then sit your butt right behind your hand. That, you scoot your butt right behind your hand, that's gonna put you in the center of the bike. Cobras kind of have it easy because you guys have a banana seat going on.
Ours is a little different.
Yes, so Yamaha's with the gas cap cover, you just sit right behind that gas cap crap, that cover thing. You guys actually kind of have it easy. It's a little cheat code. Everybody else has to kind of build that muscle memory and eyeball it up to make sure we're doing that one hand width from the top of the seat. If you look down, most of our butts should be pretty darn close above the foot pegs, right? So that shows that we're putting our weight in the center of the bike. I know back in the day it used to be taught to sit on the gas tank to corner. Maybe back then with the bikes, that's probably true, but nowadays definitely not. Nowadays the bikes want you to be centered. That's how they're going to handle the best corner the best. So sitting in the center is going to allow that front to be nice and stable and it won't be overreactive. And we also don't want to sit too far back because that's going to make that front end very light and put too much weight to the rear. So now in muddy situations, we're either going to get a lot of rear end braking loose, or we're going to get a lot of front end tucking because it just wants to ride up and out. This becomes very important when we get into ruts, sitting into ruts. We want to keep both tires locked into that rut. Sit too far back, front tire's going to ride up and out. Too far forward, you get a knife action. Okay? All right, that's first step. Second step is, realistically, don't move your feet. That's a simple step, right? You just leave the feet exactly where we had them when we were standing, but you'll just kind of go into your sitting position. You could lock in with the whole lower legs. You want to keep tension in the legs because it's still important to use your legs to squeeze the bike and control the bike. And we still want to find that disconnection with the lower body, because as much as it is important to stand and create that rotation in the hips, it's important to sit and do the same thing to get the bike to corner and find that natural arc in the corner. Okay? The way to do that is just have an upright sitting posture like you're eating a fancy dinner or something. That's going to help create that flat back and that disconnection in your lower back. Okay? And we should be able to rotate the bike no different than when we were standing, but in that sitting position. And this is also kind of a natural occurring movement. You don't need to force this necessarily too much, because most of the time in corners, ruts specifically, you will start to initiate lean angle at the beginning. And then what you're doing is you're going to start recovering from that lean angle through the mid to the exit of the corner. And that recovery is going to happen with either some throttle or just some natural roll speed. Okay? And that's something I'll talk about here as the day goes on. But the initiation of lean angle needs to happen with our hips. There'll be certain points in time where you start to follow the lean angle a little bit, but you still want to find that disconnection. Is that clear? Cool. All right, last thing is elbows. I'm sure we all have heard from a coach at some point in time, elbows up, right? Get those elbows up. But eventually, we'll end up here all over again because we get a little tired, we start forgetting about it, and now we're elbow tough. Most of the time this happens because we start to death grip as we ride. What I mean by death grip is our hands come all the way up to the grip donuts and we're squeezing as tight as we can. If we all do that and we try to do a pulling motion, guess what happens to your elbows? They come to your side because that's the strongest point your arms are in that pulling force. It's coming to your side and doing like a curl, right? You're gonna be using your biceps and your shoulders and your arms to pull yourself forward. Instead, if we can change up our hand grip by creating that diamond grip and placing that same angle of your hand onto the handlebars, it's going to naturally keep your elbows up in that aggressive position a little bit more. And it's going to allow you to start using your back muscles to pull instead of your arms. If we can think about pinching shoulder blades and activating the back as you accelerate, it's going to make it easier to keep those elbows up under those heavy driving forces. If we start pulling with the arms again, you'll start getting elbow tuck automatically. You can almost guarantee it. Okay? So use your back, not your arms. This will also allow you to ride longer with getting less fatigue in the arms and getting arm pump because you're not death gripping as tight. With that aggressive grip, you might notice a little bit less grip strength, which should be okay. And you might notice some of us are grabbing that rubber booty on the levers. That's just because our levers aren't driven down the bar far enough. Okay? Your bars allow them to drive your levers down closer to the bar pad. So you're grabbing the best leverage point with one finger. All right, I'm gonna quit yapping. I know I've been talking a lot. Is that all understood for everybody? Is there any questions before we move on here? Any questions at all? All right, what we're gonna do now.
Whoa!
That happens at least once at every class. You don't gotta worry. We're gonna do our stand-up drill. Okay. The stand-up drill is going to take place on the 50 track. It'll make it a little bit easier for everybody to just focus on the proper position because that's the goal of it. It's a muscle memory drill, so you guys can lock this in your head a little bit and do it for repetition realistically.